The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Switch 2 Remake keeps getting bigger as we've got new information about what we could be getting with this megaton game and this all-time classic. Nintendo might be preparing something that's ready to blow a lot of us away. But before we continue on, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2. All you have to do to enter is hit that subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed and drop a comment below. We are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 once we hit 150,000 subscribers, and it will be random. So the more that you actually comment and interact, the better chance that you have to win. Hit that like button, click that notification bell, and let's go ahead and jump right back into it. What's happening here with the new update from Shapeshell Nick on Twitter? Now, he talked about this before when it comes to the Ocarina of Time remake. Back in December 2024, he put up this on Discord. Man, I want that Ocarina remake so bad. Got a DM a while back that it's got a pretty big budget. Now, this is something that he revealed after Nate the Hate put out his video discussing that Nintendo does indeed finally have a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake that's planned for the Nintendo Switch 2 at the end of the year. Now, this Discord message that Nick put up was well before that in 2024, the end in December. So he apparently knew about it before then and posted that proof. Now, as a follow-up to that, he talked a bit more discussing a potential limited time bundle that could be coming here. On Twitter, he had this to say: as a follow-up to the below, from what I've been told, we're getting a Zelda-themed limited edition Switch 2 console. Not sure if the game will be bundled or not. So that would be absolutely massive if they were able to get a Nintendo Switch 2 limited time Zelda bundle. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this and why I think that it's very possible that we're going to be getting that is because they've done limited time bundles for pretty much every Nintendo system for the last number of years or decades, dating all the way back to the Nintendo 3DS. We've gotten special editions of those. They've done this multiple times, so it seems very possible that they're going to be doing that here as well. And I have a number of thoughts when it comes to this. Now, I already own a couple Switch 2s. I have a work one that's just dedicated strictly for recording and capturing footage because the Switch 2's HDR is pretty weird and I don't like resetting it and setting it. It makes things all messed up. So I'd rather just have one that's dedicated docked that I can record and capture gameplay footage for very quick and easy use. And then I have like my handheld or portable one that I use all the time and that I use also on my LG OLED TV. Now, this would be my third one if I'm going to buy another one, and it is a bit pricey. Obviously, these special editions usually go for a bit more than the regular editions of them. So I do think that it'd probably be a bit more expensive than what we've got right now, but it's something that I would have to get for the collector in me. I have the Legend of Zelda themed Nintendo Switch Lite, and I also have the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Zelda themed special edition, thinking that they did as well. Both of those are super nice, and I just want to be able to have those. They probably going to be worth a lot in the future, so I just want to pick it up just to be sure that I have one for the collector in me. Now, let's talk a bit more about what I'd like to see about the game, because yes, a bundle is great. That's awesome, but I think that the game itself, I've discussed a number of things, but I kind of want to go over for those who missed it, and of course some other things that I've added in. Now, I do think when it comes to remakes, I don't like the reimagining make. Like those ones, like let's just say Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, they're okay, but I'd rather have them do a remake that retains the original vision of the game and then adds to that. So take all of the content, all of the dungeons, all of the monsters, everything that you've done so far with the game, remake that, but then also add to it. So add in extra post-game content, add in extra weapons, add in extra armor, add in extra features, quality of life stuff. To me, that's the best way to do a remake. And when it comes to the Ocarina of Time, one of the greatest games of all time, the highest rated game on Metacritic of all time, you need to make sure that you tread carefully because people have this image of Ocarina of Time and what it is. And if you mess with that too much, you can absolutely, I would say, stain maybe some of the legacy of the game and what people are thinking, especially the new fans. So for me, I would like to see a complete remake with incredible Switch 2 level graphics, obviously great resolution and good frame rate. Then on top of that, add in a bunch of extra stuff. Post-game content should be added in. Extra dungeon, new different types of levels that you can access, maybe different modes that you can have. All of these things should be part of it. But I don't want them to tinker with what made The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time so good. I want them to take that, retain it, enhance it, and put it out. And I think that if you do that, it creates a much better type of remake to where it won't upset the people that like the original game, but then it'll also, I would say, please the people that don't just want the original game as is, and you get a bit more with it. So Nintendo's done remakes before when it comes to The Legend of Zelda. They did Link's Awakening, and I thought that was pretty good. The art style that they used, it wasn't going to be like a sprite-based art style like it was like on the Game Boy or something. So I think that for that style of game, or what they had, that was a good art style to use. I think it worked, it fits well, and the game plays awesome on the Nintendo Switch 2 with that free update. It looks and runs so good now. So they know what they're doing when it comes to a Zelda remake. They did Skyward Sword HD. It's not really a remake, but it is a really in-depth remaster, enhances things quite a bit, adds new textures, got some nice content in there, added different quality of life features. It's a good HD remaster. So I do think that it's going to be more like the Link's Awakening remake, not in how it looks, but what they did. A complete overhaul of the graphics and the features and adding in extra things. So I can see that with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, also another thing, this is super important. This is probably one of the most important games that Nintendo has ever released. And I know some people might be saying, wait a minute, why? It's a remake. We already know the status of Ocarina of Time. Like, that's just something that we already have had before. But the difference is that this is the first game when it comes to the Zelda franchise built specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't think this is going to be on the Nintendo Switch 1. I think that this is a system seller type of game. Nintendo wants to position this as, okay, if you've picked up The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom and the previous games, you want to pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 for this. Maybe those games, you already played them on Switch 1, you haven't bought a Switch 2 yet, but if you're a Zelda fan and you love The Legend of Zelda, like that is like your favorite, you've got to be able to play this on this new piece of hardware. So I think that this is going to be a massive game for Nintendo and what they're doing for the end of the year. It's going to be super important. One of the most important that they've done. Holiday period is a crucial time period. Having Zelda for the 40th anniversary is huge. Many people felt that Nintendo forgot about The Legend of Zelda and they weren't going to do anything because they didn't celebrate it on the exact day, even though Nintendo pretty much celebrates no anniversaries on the exact day, but they were expecting announcements and a whole direct themed and all that, which is silly because Nintendo almost never does that. But this is what it seems like they could potentially be doing when it comes to The Legend of Zelda. So if we get that Ocarina of Time remake on top of a limited edition Nintendo Switch 2, that is a spectacular way to celebrate for the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda. Now, another thing about this is that there is still a distinct group of people when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously, there is not everybody that's bought a Switch 1 has bought a Switch 2 yet. Nintendo Switch 1 sold 150 million plus. There's still a lot of old heads out there that have not been convinced on the current lineup. And if you bring out one of the greatest games that they played in their childhood or teenhood or early adulthood, a lot of the old heads out there are going to come out the woodwork and say, okay, I'm going to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 just for this game. I talked about it before with how Nintendo is positioning it as a system seller and exclusive to help push systems, which I'm thinking that it's going to be Switch 2 exclusive because Nintendo doesn't seem to be announcing any more Nintendo Switch 1 games. So I do feel that this is going to be something that they're going to really use to push the Nintendo Switch 2. And so many of the boomers out there, and I'm using that as a slang term, not actual boomers, but maybe even some actual boomers, but so many of the older fan base out there love this game, and this would be a title, depending on how in-depth it is, that could absolutely push them to go drop that 450 or 500 or 550 or however much this bundle or whatever this is going to cost when it comes to the game. I think a lot of them are going to go out there and pick it up for that because Ocarina of Time is that legendary of a game. Even in the N64 era, when it was getting pummeled by the PlayStation 1, the respect for Ocarina of Time was still there. You saw a lot of people in the industry, when they weren't even supporting Nintendo with a lot of their games, came out and said Ocarina of Time is the greatest game, despite it not being on the PlayStation 1, where everything was like PlayStation 1, those are all the best games, everything's on there. But Ocarina of Time came out and commanded that respect. So I would expect to see a lot of older people go out there and pick this one up. And yes, while it's important to older people, I think Nintendo's also looking at the new audience, the people that maybe grew up on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild was a 2017 game. A lot of people that played that in their childhood are now adults at this point. Maybe they didn't go back and play Ocarina of Time. Maybe they picked up Ocarina of Time on the NSO and said, man, this is crusty. I don't want to play it like this. I'm used to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then later Tears of the Kingdom. I think this is a way to get a lot of the younger audience out there that started with Breath of the Wild into an older Zelda game, and they can take the power of the Nintendo Switch 2 and transform so many aspects of that game. Once again, not completely reshape what the game is, but Hyrule Field can have so much more interesting things to do and to experiment with. They can add different side quests and other things, because it's pretty bland, because Ocarina of Time is all about the dungeon design and what it does in there. Those are all super elaborate and it looks really good, and there's so many different puzzles and different weapons and pieces of armor to get through what you need to do. So Hyrule Field, limitations of the N64, they really couldn't do too much with that. But with the Nintendo Switch 2 and their experience when it comes to designing open-ended areas, Monolith Soft, if this is a real thing, is probably going to be helping to develop with this. I think that it can be something that really grabs a lot of the younger audience and pulls them into a game that came out well before they were alive or came out when they were very, very young. So this is something, once again, that I feel is super important for Nintendo across the board, from the old school fans to the mid-range fans to the younger fans out there. Now, another thing with this is that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the remake here, I think it also signifies that there's probably a bit more time before we get to the next Legend of Zelda game. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out back in 2023. I don't think they're going to have anything ready for at least 2 years or more. So they need some type of big Legend of Zelda game to sell people. And this is a nice project to kind of slot in here that can help carry the momentum and keep the spark going for the Legend of Zelda till that next big Legend of Zelda game is ready, because that's probably not going to be ready till at least 2027. Now, they might announce it next year at like a Nintendo Direct or something, but I think that we're probably going to see that game in 2027 or 2028. It could be a bit after that. It does seem like we're lining up for Pokemon Winds and Waves for 2027, in addition to Super Mario, the next big 3D Mario game. So those are already two behemoths for 2027. So I don't think that Zelda will be ready in 2027, but 2028, I think that's when we can see that next big Legend of Zelda game. That'll be 5 years from Tears of the Kingdom. They spent 1 year optimizing the game, so it was essentially done in 2022. And they didn't do DLC, any major DLC or anything for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So I think that they really got to work right away on the next Legend of Zelda game, because right around that time is when a lot of these Switch 1 projects were being moved over to Switch 2, like Donkey Kong Bonanza or like Mario Kart World. Nintendo was experimenting and kind of had what they were looking for in 2020, 2021, 2022. So I think the Zelda team clearly knew about it at that time and said, we need to start getting to work right away. And I think that's the reason why that there's no DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. They just don't want to spend their resources doing DLC when they really need to be working on the next Legend of Zelda game. And I'm guessing that some of the Zelda team obviously was working on this remake as well. I don't think it was all the Zelda team working on this big remake. I think Nintendo might be having Grezzo, Monolith Soft, and some of the Zelda team work on it. But I do think that there was probably some, and Mr. Aonuma is probably getting plans and working on what they're going to be doing next after that. Because yes, remake is awesome, but you still need to shape up things with your next big brand new Legend of Zelda game. That will probably come a couple years after what you're doing with Ocarina of Time Remake. It's all kind of falling into place here with Ocarina of Time Remake and what the Zelda team is going to be doing coming up here for the Switch 2. But as someone who's obviously a big fan of the system and the capabilities for Nintendo ground-up made games, this is incredibly exciting to see what this Ocarina of Time remake is going to look like. The game was incredible on the N64. Nintendo had a remaster on the Nintendo 3DS that was nice as well. So getting this type of remake that could be large scale and actually a real remake of the game is just something that I think everyone, for the most part, is really waiting to see, and hopefully it can drop at the end of the year and be really good. So what do you guys think when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Remake and this new information, in addition to what I think the game could shape into being? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.